Even though there were still a lot of time left in the day hours, the two found it easy to let sleep sweep them away. The dream pulled on Talia, strongly, unlike so many others had before. But the sensation felt not entirely unfamiliar to her, and she let herself be readied for what she felt to be a coming premonition. All around, above and below, swirled a roiling firmament, and in a fog that cleared like morning ocean mists, she could see his shape taking form. Fields of rocking and rolling wastes became solid beneath her feet, and the thickening mists above blew away on the winds that pushed from everywhere. The clearing sky revealed a nocturnal portrait that, with one distant star and 4 more twinkling colored points of light, surrounded by boulders, she watched and felt the ground tremble. The air echoed with thunder as his form grew more solid. When the fog cleared, the ground stopped quaking, and there, amid the granite crags, sat a massive stone mound. The ground boomed again, more violently than before as the land heaved up beneath her. For just a moment, she became weightless as she lifted into the air, only to bounce back down to the ground. As all this was just a dream, Talia felt no fear, though she could see and feel and hear all that was happening. The stone mound hummed and reverberated as the soil around it began to crawl its way up the stone surface, filling the cracks and crevices and giving him more of a shape resembling a hulking beast. Mist began to seep out of the mound and spread out in all directions around his form. 2 gleaming eyes snapped open as the mist unfurled to stretch out like wings to either side. The stone reared up with life as his limbs reared The stone reared up with life as his limbs reached up and out. Catching his balance, the great beast came down on all 4s, revealing a long neck and tail. At the head, the rock split and fissured to crumble and fall away. It revealed a set of twisting horns that jutted back and down his spine. Finally, a pattern of stonework scales sank into his skin. The ground cracked open at his feet beneath each step as he walked a circle around Talia, observing her, deeply growling as he breathed in and out. His voice was a terror that cracked the air. "I am Ki, and a message I carry for any who will listen." As he stepped toward Talia, beneath him, the ground simply fell away. But it seemed that the oblivion beneath thrust the land back up beneath him as he passed, and all that was misshapen became reformed as though nothing had happened. "Say what you've come to say," the Azek commanded. "Do not release Azra," he roared. The world exploded in upheaval as Talia awoke with a start and a pounding heart in her chest. She lay in her bed with the dark of her room as she listened to the township and the tavern awaken in the early hours of the morning. She heard horses trot by, people call out, and the tavern clamor as it set up for breakfast. She focused on all that because her dream was so unsettling, to say the least. Being grounded always helped her think things through with a clear head. After a while, she sat up and her light returned. Talia made a small gesture with her hands and, in a quick flash of blue light, a hand-sized book dropped into her lap. When she opened the book, a small, slender stick fell out, and she took it up with a writer's style. She began to write without putting the stick to the paper. With a gentle glow, the words took shape on the page. 1065 NC, 34th day of month 3. Mathis returned yesterday morning, the only survivor of one of the expeditions into the Northlands 10 years ago. We all had thought the whole party to be lost, but he's returned, and the tale he's told me has been one to spin my head. And as an Ezek, some of it I must take on faith. I've always felt the Creator was simply a metaphor, but Mathis says Azra is real and in danger, and if this is so, as an Azek, I'm bound to see whether or not this claim is true. For another matter, he says that my father and Azra are from the same otherworldly place, and I have to say, that just confuses me even further. Am I a creator too? At a pause, her thoughts drifted, and she put the stick down. Without closing it, she placed the book aside and dug through her garments to find the small bundle. When she felt it between her thumb and finger, not pulling it out, she eased it open and pulled out the crystal to examine it with a curious smile and whispered, "What are you?" After quite a while, she put the shard back in her pocket and continued to write. She put down the contents of her dream and ruminated on the message, "Do not release Azra." And after another minute, "It seems that superior beings are indeed vested in Azra's removal. But why? I no longer need a basis of faith to know that Mathis is telling the truth, for this was no mere dream. My training as an Azek tells me that much. All that remains now is to trust that Mathis knows what he is doing, and that freeing Azra is the right thing for us to do. Here, in this moment, I resolve to trust the word of my friend over that of implied authority. May this choice serve us well." She prayed, then set the stick in the fold of the pages where she stopped and closed the book. Without any gesture, the book simply vanished as it closed. "What was that?" Mathis drowsily asked as Talia turned quickly to face him. He jumped a little in his bed because, as she faced him, there was a ghostly face in the light that surrounded her. It gazed right back at him just before it dispersed, and Talia's face was clear as could be. "Just my journal." Mathis blinked hard a couple of times to make sure his eyes were clear. "Where'd it go?" He looked around for the ghostly face, but he mostly meant to ask about the book. Talia shrugged as she laid back into her bed. "I suppose it goes off to where everything else goes. All I know is that it started long ago, and now I have lots of things stocked away." They had drifted off to sleep again, but this time was as peaceful as could be, albeit short, as the proper morning hours found them awake and rested. With their things gathered, they made their way from the lodge to the dining hall, where the owners were exceptionally happy to see them. "Sleep well?" the missus asked. "Certainly did," Mathis answered with a stretch. The room was excellent. Talia handed the mister something golden in a handshake, and everyone smiled widely at the exchange. Out of the tavern, they made their way into the streets of Ninhursag and up the main avenue, until they found themselves at its famous north wall. Its fame extended from one thing and one thing only: the number of steps carved into its face. Mathis stood at the plaque which commemorated this with a look of predisposed agony at the thought of having to climb 13,589 steps that led out of the township. "Please," Mathis turned to Talia with an already defeated look, "tell me you have another worm friend in the neighborhood you can get a hold of for a ride out of town.